high interest rate environment. Um, what's interesting, and I'll look this up as we're talking. You and I have been in the mortgage, and you on the mortgage, me on the real estate side for a long time. This really isn't a high interest rate environment, not historically.
Right.
In fact, let me
Yeah,
go
it's
to the Freddie Mac primary mortgage. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine who's been in the real estate business, two times. He's like 40 plus years, and usually when I say I've been in real estate for 25 years, I'm usually one of the senior people in the room. But every now and then I come up with these people who've been in much longer than I have, and it's pretty amazing.
they give you the rookie comment. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still a rookie.
Hey, rookie, this is your first recession.
But I think it's I think the average interest rate is like 8%. I can't remember. Here's what I came up with the Freddie Mac primary mortgage market survey. We just
Mhm.
hit an average of 6.94%. Now that's paying 0.9 fees. This is probably 20% down, where most people do 5% down. So you're going to higher risk.
Right.
So most of the stuff is at a 7 handle right now. And I hear a lot of people saying is on the real estate side that if you've been in business less than 10 years, I would say probably less than 12 years. Uh, Number one, you don't know what it's like to hold inventory. Number two, you're not accustomed to a rate that's higher than like 4% or 3%.
Right.
So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I remember when rates just first started going up at the beginning of this year, where you started seeing like some of the memes and stuff that people have been in, where they're like, the first home I bought was at like 17%, like yada yada yada. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's there's there's a whole different dynamic to what people need to do. I was talking with I was having a conversation the other day that with some agents, and I'm like, hey, this is the days of the laydowns are gone. Like, you actually have to like work and try and like sharpen your sales skills now. People, you can't just have like, a line of people lining up out the door for a listing and have it go in a blink of an eye with no um
Yeah.
with no inspections, 50K over. Nope.
Nope.
Things are, so it's, there's some there's some adjustments that need to be made for a lot of people that, I mean, especially anybody who's just got into the business in the last, few years too, like
Yeah.
just night and day, right?
So I'm entering into that time of year where I'm really going to be focusing on doing business planning with
Mm-hmm.
agents, and I did my first one yesterday. And one of the things that I said is, look, remember those days like less than a year ago where all you had to do is go to a crowd of people, take a rock and throw it in the crowd, and you're going to find a seller and maybe a buyer or two.
Right.
I'm like, those days are gone. You've actually got to work. But with that same subject, what I find is real estate agents are worried. They're the ones that I've talked to. Some of the veteran real estate professionals are somewhat excited because they know that homes will always sell, and
Mm-hmm.
the market itself is going to push out, for a lack of a better term, the riffraff,
All right.
the fourth quartile of agents. So they're going to be able to take over market share because they have the skills. And they
Right.
also know that regardless of whatever market condition, here's what I pulled up on the Freddie Mac. This is all the rates. So you go back over to here, October 16th of 1981, 18.5% was the 30-year mortgage. And houses still sold.
Right.
Now, they didn't sell for the prices that they're selling at now. So I think if our rising interest rates continue to go up, prices have to come down. But that's also going to mean fewer homes are are going to be selling too. But homes are going to be selling. And somebody's going to have to sell the property, and someone's going to have to do the mortgage for the buyer on the property. And instead of worrying about what could happen that's completely outside of our control, look, you and I can sit there, you and I can have a conversation. We can figure out all the world's problems in about 30 minutes. But that's not going to do anything. So, going back to what you and I always say is that lead generation solves all problems.
Yeah. I mean, it's sales cures all, right? And for sales to happen, you need to have people to talk to, regardless of what market conditions we're in. People are gonna be buying and gonna be selling. It's just how much of that business, how much of that piece of that pie that you want to get. So
yeah,
I tend to. I mean, I think people who've gone through, been through a cycle, they can appreciate, like you mentioned, can appreciate it and kind of almost look forward to, washing out some of that, some of the people, the part-timers, that were snatching up a few deals here and there, and which is, kind of natural. I mean, it's surprising what a small percentage of agents do the bulk of the business.
Yeah, it used to be the 80-20 rule. 20% of the agents did 80% of business. I would venture in most markets and most, high major cities markets, not rural areas, but probably this is probably true for rural areas too, is that 10%, if not less, do 90% of the business. In my experience, there's a lot, especially, starting my career in Utah, it was much different in Utah than it is in California. Number one, there's so much competition in California. Everybody has a real estate license. Like
Right.
Everybody has a real estate license. Whereas in Utah, being a real estate broker carried a level of prestige to it. I came here and people were like, "You're a real estate agent? Yeah, so what? So is a person who walks my dog." I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's it's like a natural progression for people who get out of high school and don't have any specific direction that they want to go into. A lot of times it's that like low hanging, well, I'm doing something. I'm not going to college. I'm not, doing a trade or whatever. I could, I'm going to do this.
And I think the reason why is because it looks easy. You see all these things on television and you see the lifestyle, and what they don't show is the work that has to go into it.
Right.
So in my training, my business planning, there were new agents in there. And I was talking about these various different activities on how to, sources of how to get business. And the common objection that I get from newer agents, I would imagine that this is true with newer loan officers, newer everything in any type of sales professional, is that they're like, okay, well, how does one compete against somebody who's more experienced? Mm-hmm. It's like they've already talked themselves out of succeeding in the business because there's so many. What they don't realize is that veteran agent was a new agent at one time. They probably had the same reservations than the experienced one. But, I find that in today's market, well, when we go back into the data, 77% of all sellers only interview with one agent.
Right.
And all consumers want to work with somebody who they know, like, and trust, know that they're in real estate, and is what they perceive as an expert in their market. Nowhere in there says that they're looking for somebody who's been in the business for 20 years. In fact, there's a lot of people who have been in the business for 20. Look, I haven't sold a house for 8 years. I've sold 1,000 over across 26 states, but that was like my first decade. I've only been in consulting and training since, aside from my own stuff. But there's a lot of people being licensed for X amount of years does not equate to experience, and it does not equate to market knowledge. So as you and I talk about it, maybe this is a good thing that we can talk about now, is that discovery period. Google says that 88% of consumers, they made their buying decision on what they're going to buy or who they're going to work with before they actually physically meet with them. So they're getting to know them, like them, trust them, know that they're market knowledge before they even meet them. And I think, and this is coming into your area of expertise, why do you think that nobody's taking advantage of that? I mean, everyone's going online. They have to get to know you like you have you somewhere. We're doing these videos because of that, but we don't see a whole lot of real estate professionals. I'm not going to pick on real estate and mortgages. We don't see many professionals doing it at all. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, it's a big part of, at least in my opinion, is there's it can be technically challenging for a lot of people, and they can very easily get discouraged in putting in effort. So first, there's the learning curve of actually doing something. The technology, learning, like whether it's like, so, obviously a great example of this is like, posting to YouTube would accomplish this, like know, like, and trust. You can give a video where you're sharing that in. So, not only do you have to come up with the content, you have to record the content. People feel like they see the stuff that's online where it's highly polished and professionally edited, and they feel like it needs to be like that. Right. And then you get in there and you have to figure out where to plug things in, what to do, how to create an account. And it can become paralyzing when you're just trying to eat. Right. And so it's that like hierarchy of needs of like, hey, like I'm hitting this roadblock when I could just go door knock, or I can make busy work and go to an open house or whatever it is. So there's this natural regression to the easier things that are more accessible, and and then they strike up a conversation, and then it's like, okay, I just got a referral. This person was so easy, and that's still so hard, right? So, I mean, there's there's 1,000 different reasons, but a lot of it is just, there's a comfort level. And then a lot of that stuff doesn't provide immediate results.
It's the immediate gratification thing. It's no different than losing weight. And if you'll get into the gym and you'll go hard like one day, and then all of a sudden you're sore for the next 2 weeks and you didn't see any results from it, so you're like, this isn't going to work.
Right.
And relationships take time. When we start hearing about people know you, like you, and trust you, that takes time. Now, what's interesting in this day and age, what I find is that sales professionals, they look at creating content, they look at doing videos, they look at social media, they look at that as ancillary to their business. And they're not, and truth be told, there's a lot of sales trainer out there who are actually pushing against it. They're still encouraging. I think in every sales professional, everybody still encourages door knocking, telephone prospecting. Even though the modern consumer has changed, you and I have talked about this in the past, those are activities that will always work to a certain degree. Their effectiveness, on the other hand, are to be debated, but they'll always work. There used to be a day that 25 years ago that I called 10 people, I talked to 5 of them. Now you call 10 to people, you talk to 0. You got to call 20 people to talk to somebody because everyone sends you to voicemail. Everyone's screening their calls.
Right.
So, but, with that being said, when we start talking about, lead generation, when we talk about Google saying that 88% of all consumers, regardless of what the product or service is making their decisions before they actually meet the person, you've got to put that content out because that's where they're meeting people. That's where they're getting to know you. That's where they're getting to like you. That's where they're getting not to like you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's great too because now you're
Totally.
screening. You have a screening thing. Look, no, not everyone's going to like us. You don't want to do
Yeah,
business with them anyways, right? I mean, there's so much
that's
business out there. Why do you have to? There's going to be 50% of the people don't like you, 50% of the people like you. Why not just focus on the 50% of the people that like you? Because likely you're going to like them and you'll have a
right.
pleasant experience as long as you do your job.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's the your vibe attracts your tribe.
Your vibe attracts
And
your tribe. I'm going to use that.
yeah, and the we I run into this occasionally where it's like where people are concerned about and this is in the context of marketing and running ads, and they're like, well, I don't want to do the same thing as everybody else. I'm like, well,
You're really
you can
not.
say that, but you are you. You're not Janelle from down the road. People are going to want to work with you because of who you are and the type of person you are, your experience, your background, your story, whatever it is. And people are going to want to work with Janelle for being Janelle. So you guys could be putting out the same information, the same content, and people are just going to naturally gravitate to whomever they resonate with the most. So trying to help people process that information and into your have my own opinion on like where you talking about when you're talking about the people that are teaching like the cold calling, the door knocking, and the problem isn't that it doesn't work. The problem is that it does work.
It does work.
you know and not only that, it's easy to teach, it doesn't cost the business anything, and it's like there's no, it's not like, hey, here's how you do you know run advertisements, here's how do Facebook and Instagram and Google and TikTok, where that's always a moving target, which some of these larger companies, as they come in, it's like that stuff generally costs money too to go along with it. And many new agents I was reading the other day, um, on average, they start with less than $5,000 in the bank, and they make on average less than or about $8,800 a year for their first 2 years. So it's not feasible for a lot of these people to invest in that type of stuff without seeing that type of immediate instant gratification type of a thing.
I also read an article. I don't know how accurate it is, so I'll put that out as a disclosure. But it seems
Right.
right to me, is that 80% of all agents who get into the business are out of the business within 8 months. Now they're not going to take their license inactive or such, but they've made the decision that this isn't for them, and now they're going to look for a job, and that seems relative or correct. And the interesting thing, going back to your point, is that it's easy to teach. Everybody's teaching it. It's now kind of expected that you're just going to go and hammer the streets, go door knock, even if it's not what the consumer really likes and it's not as effective as it once was. Those are
Mm-hmm.
still being taught. And one of the reasons I think is, and you and I have been on both sides, you and I have done this, is that when you're the business owner, when you're the broker, and you're spending money to generate those leads, you're not going to give those to the least qualified person to follow up
Right.
on. The leads that you're going to get from the company are going to be the ones that haven't converted, the ones that are 30, 60, 90 days old,
Right.
because those are not the hot leads. The hot leads go to the people who have the experience and who have the track record to confirm them. So I'm going back to what you had said. They don't have the skills, but the only
Mm-hmm.
way you can get the skills is by practice. And
Right.
I find that most people don't practice. Most people wing a conversation, and
Yeah.
that's very interesting to me. Even my kids know this. If you go into either one of my children and you ask them, how do you get good at anything, they're going to say practice. I mean, I've instilled that in them
Yeah.
as they grow up, that they understand that they can do anything they want, but it's not just making that choice, it's making that choice and then practicing. And
It's good.
let's transition to this. How? Let's talk about how somebody, they're the person watching this, they agree with us, they need to have a digital strategy, they want to get into video. Let's talk about the step, first 1, 2, 3 steps that they need to do that they can do right after this video. What do you think? You do this day in and day out. What's
Um,
step one?
yeah. So, the step one is, um, taking the action of doing it, like deciding. Obviously, there's logistics,
So step one's
apps,
here. Make the
right? It's
decision.
like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Um, and one of the things too is also the decision to commit to the process and not the results. Because that's where, to speak on your point of like, that's where you get the skill. Like if you're making videos, your first videos are going to suck. They just are. You're going to get better with it, with repetition and
Everything
skill
you
over
do
time.
very first, you suck.
Everything, right?
Everything.
I always tell this to my sales guys when I'm training them. I'm like, you got to get the marbles out of your mouth. Do not be afraid to mess up. You're going to mess up. It's expected that you mess up. You got to get the marbles out of your mouth, so you know what to say. You can practice, you can rehearse, you can do all that till the cows come home, but you have to get your hands dirty. You got to get in the trenches and you got to have those real life conversations to get better. So, what does that look like? That looks like actually, recording videos, doing something. The what I would recommend for everybody, to get started is not to just start on short form. Come up with a list of like common questions that you get every day from the conversations that you just recently had, and answer those. Here's a question that I got, blah, 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 and give it a response, right? It can be 60 seconds, 30 seconds. Um, and, you can rip out common questions that you get, and that's just easy content to get started with.
And to that point, so number one is make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Get the mental. I love that you just said it's the process, not the result. Because if you focus on the process, the result is the natural outcome to your activities, to the process.
Yeah.
Yesterday I got home from work and the kids wanted. Dana had planned that we're going to go to a trunk or treat, and so we went to that. And it got later and later into the day, and then my daughter had gymnastics, so I didn't get to work out yesterday. Normally I work out in the morning, didn't get started. Then I work out at night, but then I got home. We didn't get home until like 9 o'clock. And I could have very easily just decided, no, I'm not going to work out today. But,
Right.
I'm committed to the process. I'm
Mm-hmm.
committed to, you gotta be disciplined. So 9:30, I'm out there jump roping. I typically jump rope for 20,000 jumps. That's about
Good for
20,
you,
25
Dad.
minutes. Yeah. And then I do a workout. So I'm working out for about 45 minutes. But I didn't want to do it, but I knew that if I missed it, kind of going back into missing
Mm-hmm.
the activities that you do, it's the collective completion of the activities is what gets you that desirable outcome. And so what I would say after step two, after that mindset, is you've got to create the video. And you don't need a fancy camera. You don't need a microphone. You don't need fancy lighting. You need to be conscious of that, but you have this supercomputer that's in your pocket. If you don't have a supercomputer in this pocket, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to do well in real estate. You need to have a supercomputer in your pocket. That's turned into one of those tools that you need for, in my opinion, any sales professional business.
Yep.
And script out what you're going to say. Who are you? Make an introduction. Who are you? Where do you work? Explain the area that you service. and give some reasons why people should work with you. How would it impact their solution? Most home sellers want to sell their home for the most money in the quickest amount of time and the least amount of hassle. Start there. Hi, I'm Brett Matsura. I'm with XYZ Real Estate. I've been in the business for X amount of years. I specialize in Irvine, California. My main focus is working with sellers who want to sell their home for the most money in the quickest amount of time with the least amount of hassle. If that's you, please download my free report on how to sell your home for the most money in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle, even in a recessionary environment. That was pretty good. I'm probably going to go back and turn that into a script.
So I would argue with you in regards to the video framework, because people don't care who you are. They don't care how long you've been in the business. They don't care what company you're with. They care about what you can do for them, or they're there to be entertained a little bit.
So I do agree with you on that. But as far as who branding matters. Mm-hmm. Who you work with matters. When you start looking at all the different brands in anything, look, you're from Southern California. That's where we met. The largest Mercedes dealership on the planet is in Newport Beach. If brands didn't matter, everybody would be driving a Kia. Right. And brands is one level of that, but who you are also matter. Now, what doesn't matter is if you just say who you are and that's it. There's no follow-up sequence. There's no continuation of giving value, right? But I do agree with you. You don't matter. The seller or the buyer or the consumer matters, but you matter in as fact of who you are and what you can provide them that will solve their immediate problem, that will give them gratification. The other thing that you said is that, and I'm going to paraphrase because I often say this, is that you have to be somewhat of an infotainer. You've got to provide information and you've got to make it inviting and entertaining. If you can't, if you've either got to give them information that they want that will solve a problem, or you've got to be entertaining. I say do both, but you've got to do one of those two in order to capture their attention.
I think this goes back to your your comments about the practice, and really letting go of like the results and really hone in on the fact that like just doing it is the process to get better. And one of the things that I'll often have to remind myself is that I let the data guide my decisions. And if I make a video or I run an ad or do something, what's the watch time? What's the click-through rate? What's the stats? How many leads is this ad campaign generating? Because what I think and what I feel, obviously that's important, but at the end of the day, I let the data tell me what the market is responding to. So I like your tie-in with your stuff. I would probably suggest putting that on the end of a video. If you like what I said and you want, and then blah, 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 call to action. Yeah. Get this, right? That towards the end. Subscribe. Give me a follow. Wherever we want to send them. Short form video, like 3 to 5 seconds, the hook, that's make or break. That's a very, very first thing. So it's like, if you want to find out how a client of mine almost lost $60,000 on the sale of their Newport Beach home, watch this.
Ooh. Everyone should write that one down.
Now I got your attention. Now
everyone should write that one down and just change it for their city.
I'm a Newport Beach homeowner. Like I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose $60,000. Right? Almost lost $200,000.
Download my free report.
By avoiding these 3 main pitfalls, right? Number 1, try to sell their home by themselves. Number 2, yada, yada, yada.
That's funny. That was going to be my number 1 that I was going to say.
So we hook them in, give them some information. And by the way, my name's Brett Matsura. I blah, blah, blah.
If you like what you heard, download my free
If you like what
report.
you heard, give me a follow, subscribe, get this report.
You know,
So
and,
we
and
put them
talking about
in.
that now, that's a good transition into now they have the video, but the video by itself doesn't won't just generate you a lead. You need to have some sort of bait, some sort of opt-in to get that. So, one thing that I talk about is creating a report that you can customize. It's the same content, but
Mm-hmm.
you can customize it for every single market, for every city, for every neighborhood, and that is the top 10, the 10 reasons or the 5 ways that you can sell your home, sell your Irvine home, sell your Newport home, sell your Houston home
Mm-hmm.
for top dollar with the least amount of time, least amount of hassle, even in a recession, right? So
Right.
you have a different cover. The content's 95% the same, but that's how you're going to convert that watch person into an actual person in your database that you can now nurture on them and allow them to get to know you, like you, and trust you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what other deliverables do you suggest? Well, we talked about it last week. List of homes in your
Yeah.
area. That's a buyer. That's a buyer lead. Free report. That could be a buyer lead or a seller lead.
I lean towards list of homes as buyer and seller. Half the people in the market are going to want to sell their home too. Um, so I try not to, at least in that regards, try not to have people so focused on is this buyer or this seller. How can I help this person? So many people who are buyers are also sellers too, and the best way to get their listing is to help them find a new home. And you can generate buyer leads for significantly less than
Yeah.
seller leads. But the on the deliverable sides, I was a huge, I'm still, I'm still a deliverables kind of guy, like, download something or get something or watch this training. But I am starting to lean more towards the deliverable is more attention and follow along for more views or more content, more information, and getting them on your list is important, but and just that distribution and that deliverable can be more content. So hey, even just getting your email for the next for more information like this, right? So where so people aren't, it lowers the bar of like feeling like I have to come up with X, Y, and Z, or I have to provide X, Y, and Z in order to be able to engage, when you could just be when it could just be a new home that hit the market.
Yep.
Check out this Crystal Cove home that's going, for, XY deal. Like, this is what you get in Laguna Hills for this price. Check out this new home that hit the
Well,
market.
and you can also build a whole video series around that too. A lot of times people are worried about generating content, and man, there's a lot of content. There are new homes that come on the market every single day. Give your opinion on it. Talk about the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on the neighborhoods? We know that buyers are looking for an experienced agent to help them buy, and we also know that sellers are looking for the market expert to sell their home. So while their outcome, their what they want to do, one wants to sell, one wants to buy. The type of person that they're looking for relatively is the same.
Hmm.
And the person who has the most content that can be found that they can get to know, like, and trust, I think that's where it's going to that is where it's at. That's not where I think it's at. That's where it is at. And the sooner people start realizing that and get out of their comfort zone and just start doing it, realizing that they're going to suck first until they get better,
Right.
they're going to weather this change in the market much better than somebody who continues to try to do the same thing the same way. What's that saying? The definition of
Definition of
insanity.
insanity.
Yeah.
doing
Doing
the
the same
same
thing over
thing
again and expecting a
and
different
expecting a
result.
different result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I obviously I'm here with you making this video, so I'm a
We're
a
fans.
full believer in creating content. Um, but at the same time, like there is a bar, there is a hurdle that you don't want to just ignore. So it's one of the things that like for people that I person work with, and we work in helping them building out their brand, build their database and sphere of influence and all that stuff is like, hey, there's interruption marketing and there's like attraction marketing where this is the attractions, the content, the videos, bottom of the funnel type stuff. But that stuff, there is a hurdle to get to for people coming up with that content, putting in the work, creating those videos. Whereas your interruption stuff, you can run simple campaigns on Facebook and Instagram to generate right now immediate inbound stuff. So I think big picture is like a really combination of both of them. Like you can get your paid stuff going to constantly feed your pipeline and bring more new fresh eyeballs into your world while you're building out building out your videos, your know, like, and trust, and doing all that stuff. So there's always going to be um you know I feel like there's always going to be both sides of that. Even the biggest people, like you go around, you see like billboards of companies, that's interruption marketing.
Yeah.
And it's staying top of mind, right? You're not looking for it, but hey, I saw that agent, they're always advertising, so when I go and I do search, I'm like, yep, I remember them. So I think there's a healthy balance of of both. It's not one or the other. But obviously it's how do you
No, no,
get there.
absolutely. And
you
to
know
your point, we both probably get a lot of mail, flyers
Mhm.
from local real estate agents. Most of all of the stuff that I get has no call to action to it, but you still get something off of it. It's still so doing nothing, you get nothing. Doing something, you typically will get something. There's a saying that most people they go into the terms of succeeding and failing, whereas a true business person who's looking to generate lead, they look at it as just as testing. You
Yeah.
throw out an ad, you throw out some sort of marketing on whatever means, and you have to test the response rate. And then once you can test the response rate, now you can test on the conversion rate. And so they're tracking. I mean, you do this in your business better than I, that's for sure. But you're tracking every step of the process so you can just fine tune whatever
hmm
it is that needs to be done. And but to our point, you got to first start before you can test anything.
Right. Yeah. I 100% agree with you there. Everything, I look at everything as an iteration process. We're not. It's not a win or lose. It's a test it out and test and iterate. And I got to share my sales and lead tracker with you. You'll get a kick out of it, all the way down to you know the most minute detail.
That sounds analytical, Luke.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that I would do.
Yeah, it'll I might maybe I'll share that with the people some of these days. It's awesome though.
All right. Well, we're at 40 minutes, so
Cool.
we're done. Come join us again next week. So, Luke, check this out. This is number 12. And if we started when we said that we were going to start several years ago, we'd be like at 100. But, we got around to it, and now we're doing it consistently.
I love it, man.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Rock and roll.